Hello, beauties. Jack with you and Midlife by Human Design. Sorry, this episode is coming a little late to you on the Monday that I normally drop it. I wanted to talk to you more about permission, the idea of permission, because last week we talked about if you already know what you want to do, then why aren't you doing it? And I guess I wanted to dive into that a little bit more. And I'm going to give credit to Chris Corsini, who, if you aren't familiar with him, he is an astrologer. His book just came out called The Audacity Experiment. And one of the first things that he asks you to do in the book is to rip out this permission slip that he puts at the very beginning of the book. It's like the cover has a lining, and then the other half of the lining, which is the first page, he turns into this beautiful permission slip. And he says, rip that fucker out. And I love Chris. We share an affinity for the F-bomb, but we also share an affinity for using the stars to help us live our best lives. And I loved that this was his first kind of call to action in this book about Audacity, because, man, I had to read a few pages before I actually took the action. And then I had this inner discussion with myself in my head of, do I really want to rip it out? What if I just want to keep it nice and neat? And it was basically my good girl voice coming through and refusing to do this ridiculous thing of ripping a page out of a book that I bought. And finally I was like, okay, I see you, good girl, and you need to just take a seat in the back and rip the permission slip out. So I did, and it's inspired this episode because I realized how much I still get caught up in the good girl and the wanting to do the right thing, or wanting to do the good thing, or wanting to people please. And one thing I wanted to say about knowing what you want to do but not taking action on it is that even when you feel like you have permission, sometimes it still might take you a while. And so I wanted to look at, where can you look in your human design chart for permission? Maybe you can't give permission to yourself. Maybe you feel like your ego is screaming. You've got too many voices telling you that what you want is too selfish. It's not the right time, it's not the right situation, or you need to wait for XYZ. And I just want to give you some places that you can look in your chart to see, like, maybe the permission that you feel like you can't give yourself is staring you in the face through your human design. The first thing, of course, is to look at your strategy and authority. And I feel like a broken record talking about strategy and authority, but it is your body's compass. You know, it is the way that we are designed to take action on things. And I've been thinking about this part-time job that I took in January that is with a small local travel company, helping them with essentially some copywriting. And the way that that opportunity unfolded was very simply, it was, I saw something that they put in Front Porch Forum. It drew me in. I sent a message. They were like, yeah, come meet with us. I went to meet with them. They were lovely people. I immediately just felt warm and like they were really excited to hear my ideas. And it was very easy. It was just a seamless transition into helping them. And I reflect on that as a generator type, where you see something You respond to it. And when things unfold naturally, then there's something meant for you there. And to be totally honest with you, I have considered scrapping everything in the last few months because, like, all of my jobs and just looking for one full-time job again, because frankly, I'm doing a number of things that have me very busy and at times feeling pretty fucking burnt out. And plus also, I love each of the things that I'm doing separately. It's just they don't always pay the credit card bills the way I would like them to, and they don't give me the financial freedom, at least yet, that I would like them to. And so this is an example of one pivot that I've been considering that I just haven't felt right doing. And this is my emotional authority at work. It is me feeling through the different scenarios. It's me feeling the low of sometimes the financial challenges are a struggle. And then it's also me feeling the high of, I love helping this company. They just sold 5 trips because I sent this email out and it was really helpful for them. Or I just got an email from one of you that said, hey, this episode that you just released was so impactful. I really felt it deeply and I felt so seen. And thank you for what you're doing. Those kinds of things are helpful to me. And the truth is, essentially, that is what I want to be doing for you all, is inspiring you to make big changes. And of course, supporting you through those changes. So working together longer terms, whether that be starting with one session and then extending it as you practice with your strategy and authority and talk through, like, what does that look like when I change my mind? Or what does it look like in my life when I can't take the freaking action that I've been wanting to take? What is holding me back? And we look at your chart together and try to decipher what might be coming up. Where is the block and how do we get you unstuck? So your emotional authority is essentially permission for you to not know right now. And listen, I have had experiences with my emotional authority where I feel like I know the answer or I know what I want to do, but sometimes it takes years for me to take an action on it, for me to feel like the right timing. And this is essentially the wisdom of the emotional solar plexus, is knowing the right timing. 50% of us have the emotional authority. And if this is your authority, I want to give you permission to stop beating yourself up if you haven't taken the action yet, and consider that maybe this is your wisdom at play. Maybe this isn't something wrong that you're doing right now. Maybe it is you preparing. Maybe it's you understanding that you have to feel like it's the right timing. And I also want to give a caveat here that when you know it's the right timing, you got to take the action. You've got to trust yourself to take the action. And again, this is part of the work that I do with women, is helping you to trust yourself, helping you to look at the pieces of your design and look back at your past to say, these are the decisions I made, X, Y, and Z, and this is where I felt like I was really following my design, and this is where it worked out, this is where it didn't, and then helping you to deconstruct those things so you can understand, shit, actually, I can trust myself, and maybe I've been dragging my feet on this decision because it doesn't feel like the right time yet. And I'm giving myself permission to wait to wait for that clarity. And remember that it's probably not going to feel 100% clear. As an emotional authority, you're going to need to take some kind of step forward, some kind of action in order to gain some of that clarity. So this is where we go back to those 1-degree pivots that I talked about in episode 115. Those tiny little steps that you can take to kind of feel it out. And when you take a tiny step forward, how does that feel? What kind of feedback are you getting emotionally that will inform your emotional authority? If you have a sacral authority, this is permission to want what you want, to trust that gut feeling, that desire that is coming from your gut is true for you, and that you can follow that. And again, if it's a big decision that you've been thinking about and you're a sacral authority, then maybe it's taking action on smaller sacral yeses to help you build that authority and build that permission for yourself. But tuning into your gut and trusting your gut to make decisions for you, it's fucking scary. And I respect that. And I understand how much your head can play into what is going on. And the trick for us all is to discern the difference between our mental chatter and what our body is leading us to. I'm just going to do a couple of more authorities because I want to keep this episode short. So if you are a projector and you have a self-projected authority, your chart is giving you permission to use your voice. And especially if you're a self-projected projector and you don't talk things out or you keep a lot in your head or inside, this is permission to unleash that beast. Even if it's simply singing, singing along to a song in the car, just using those vocal cords to say words out loud and communicate, and then use it to give yourself permission to start talking about your feelings. And if you don't want to share your deepest, darkest thoughts with anyone out loud, more power to you. That is your prerogative. It still means that your voice is important. And so I encourage you to take a walk out in the woods and talk to the trees, talk to the birds, talk to the salamanders, talk to the peepers, and let them know what is important to you. What are you considering? Don't take your phone with you because your phone listens to everything. So don't take your phone with you. Instead, just go and talk it out. You have permission from your chart to use that throat. And I guess as an aside, if you have a defined throat, I would say the same for you, regardless of if that is part of your authority or not, using that voice. The other thing that I want to talk about in terms of permission and where you can look for this in your chart is your centers. So in this case, I want you to look at your undefined centers and think about how they might be showing you where you're seeking permission, like specific types of permission. So if you have, for example, an undefined G center, then where are you seeking permission to be a different version of yourself? Where are you seeking permission to be a version of yourself that maybe you feel isn't going to be accepted by your current structures, your family structures, your friend structures, like all of those people that are in your sort of support network? If you feel like they are not going to support you, that's a scary thing. And plus also, as an undefined G center, this is the beauty of your life, is you are a chameleon. You get to reinvent yourself over and over and over again. So If you're waiting for permission to redefine yourself into a new version, this undefined G center is giving you exactly that. If you have an undefined head center, for example, are you waiting for permission until you have all the answers? Do you feel like you have to wait until you know all of the things like X, Y, and Z? You have to have a solid plan together. You have to have all of the unknowns mapped out with possibilities. Are the answers and potentially the gajillion questions of what if running through your mind, are those things holding you back? And if so, remember that your undefined head is designed to be inspired. Okay, so all of those what ifs that are in your head are simply what ifs. They aren't definitive answers. They aren't definitive pathways saying this is the way it's going to go. And notice here how your brain may be skewing to a negative bias as well. Chances are those what if kinds of questions are essentially one form of the question, what if it all falls apart? Or what if this plan goes to total shit? Or what if this works out the worst possible way I could imagine? And I want you to remember, if you have an undefined head center, that this is your head inviting in inspiration, and you don't have to know the answers. Permission granted to not know these answers. Okay, and then just for one more center, a lot of us have an undefined ego or heart. It's the small triangle. And here, I want you to ask yourself if you are waiting to feel like you're good enough for XYZ, waiting to feel like you're worthy enough of something. You know, whatever this idea is that's been circling in your mind, or the change that you are contemplating, is there some part of you that feels like you need to be affirmed in some way, that you need to be told in some way that you're good enough to go for it, or that essentially you're looking for a guarantee that it's going to work out the way that you hope? And newsflash, it's not the way life works. There aren't any guarantees that it's going to work out exactly as you hoped. However, if you are feeling this pull, if you are feeling this idea come around constantly over and over and over again, then there's probably something for you in that. And again, going back to your authority, maybe now in this moment isn't the exact right time. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe this podcast is your sign that this is actually the exact right time. But if it's not, giving yourself some grace and understanding where you can look in your human design chart for some clues to why maybe is it taking a longer time for you to take action on this? And how can you look at your design and feel like, okay, I'm not being weak because I'm not choosing to take action on it right now. This is why that may be happening. And maybe the most important part of this whole podcast is after you've got this permission and you understand where it's coming from in your chart, understanding that now what do you do? What do you do in the interim, in this time period before you make the change that you're considering? How can you help to set yourself up? And this is where we get into the more practical pieces. When I'm supporting you, for example, I help you set up a plan. Let's make a map. Let's map this out and talk about what could be the different scenarios and how can we use your design to help support you in the interim so that you feel more grounded when you're making these big midlife changes. Whether you are at the point where your kids are gone from the nest and you are totally redefining who you are, or whether you're a little earlier in the phases where your kids are getting older and you're starting to feel this pull of like, shit, I have built this entire life and I'm not sure I like it anymore. And that feels shitty. I feel guilty about that. Or maybe you're even on the other end and you have started to recreate this life already and you're still feeling ungrounded and not sure that it's the highest and best expression of you. So human design is such a useful tool to give yourself some answers, like how do we get through this messy middle? And you know that I am here to help support you. So book a session. The link is in the show notes, or feel free to reach out to me on socials or via email, Lori@LoriLeeSide.com, if you want to just start a conversation. Tell me what is going on with you. If you have a question, ask me a question so I can answer it on the podcast. I would love to help support you as you are making your way and to help you find the permission that you may not even realize that you need, but maybe you've kind of been dragging your feet. And when you imagine getting solid permission, you realize, wow, maybe I would actually take action if I felt like I had permission from my kids or from my spouse or from the people I work with or from society. Maybe I would take action if I felt like I had permission from them. This is your invitation to look at your chart for that permission. Okay, lovelies, as always, I am wishing you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.